Okay, I was going to do a short video or a video on, I was going to do another brisket, but I'm only cooking for one person. So what I do is I basically trim up a whole brisket, and I'm only going to cook part of it. I think I'm cooking the flat, but I'm not sure. It doesn't make any difference. I'm going to cook everything, you know, but not all at once. I can only cook, you know, enough for me to eat. So the rest of it's actually still in the freezer until next time I cook. But essentially, this is my my ugly drum smoker, and you can see, what the piping I did for it was basically utilizing the available openings on this particular drum, and so it basically just teed out from the bottom for the venting, and then use what black pipe I had, and I was luckily able to get some, I think they're 1.5 inch valves for it. And then at the top I actually just used some elbow, or I don't know what they're called, but it basically just from sink fixtures that they usually use in the sink. But you can just, if you look around, you can find them at the thrift stores and so forth. And I cut off a little bit and then just screwed them on directly onto the pipe that's on there, and they fit perfectly. And they're really just not for looks, or basically to just keep the rain from going down into the in the piping, and they don't hurt anything as far as venting or drafting the smoker. So essentially this was an old, I don't know, they had, I got it from a company that actually does manufactures rubber pads for other companies, and I don't, so this drum actually had a rod in the bottom, and then basically a whole mixing panel that fit on that rod, so you can mix up the contents of the barrel before pouring them out. And so I was able to use that for basically the charcoal basket, which you can see videos on, all over the internet. But it gives me the ability to just basically, I can obviously spin it around within the drum. I'm going to take it out just to show you here. So there's actually the rod. You can, if you can see it there, kind of in the center. But now my phone is full of charcoal dust, and so essentially on the bottom of my roaster here, I have a pipe that fits on the rod, and then just one obviously keeps it in the center, and two, I can actually, like I say, it doesn't fit tightly on there, but it fits on there. So essentially that's what I have. I need to get it recentered on there and then add charcoal. This time around I'm not going to clean out the drum, but before I cook again, I'll probably have to clean it out. But also I'm using royal oak hardwood lump charcoal, and the only reason I'm using that is because I got it relatively cheap, again at a thrift store. I think it was like whatever, $7.50 for a bag or something like that. But it works, and basically everything tastes really good. What I do have in the basket is leftover charcoal from the last batch after I cut it off, cut off the ear to it and put everything out. So I got some oak pieces in there, that, you know, that are burned. I have a few pieces of oak log that I'm going to put in there. Obviously, you can see it's dried out and or been dead for quite a while, but you don't really ever taste that. It's just basically oak wood, and obviously the drier the better. You don't really want green oak. So what I'm going to do is actually get the basket re-centered in the center, and then fill it up, load it up with charcoal and a little bit more oak logs. Then I'm going to get the charcoal starter going, and I'll just basically put the charcoal on one side of the basket, and that's how I'll work it. So I'll be back once I get started on this. Okay, obviously it doesn't take long for the barrel to heat up, and obviously at the top I got about 250 degrees. Obviously heat usually rises. I have it fully open as far as the vents go, and as the charcoal, you know, ignites the rest of the charcoal in the basket, I'll have to adjust the vents, because obviously a whole basket of charcoal is really going to get this thing hot, but I'm probably going to try to, and have done before, just, you know, keep the temperature at about 225 degrees for over 6 hours, because even though this is small, if I, you know, cook it at a lower temperature, you know, it's just fine. I won't have a lot of bark on it, because obviously if I do that and it's not a large piece of meat, you know, the bark is probably gonna, you know, take up a lot of the meat, and I don't want that. And, you know, it really doesn't matter to me too much. So and where the grate is, it's essentially going to be you know, not very close to the fire, but able to cook. So I'm going to take the cover off now. What I did is I did brush off the grate, but I usually use a small grate, and it's a perfect size. Obviously it's the same size as the one that I have the meat on now, but I'm just going to use a, you know, cooking grate. So I did wash my hands, and so all I'm going to do is put it on the little grate, and so obviously it just keeps it, you know, from having direct contact with the other grate, because they don't need it to have, you know, any direct contact. And the little grate is, you know, perfectly sized, but obviously that one's, you know, for raw meat, and this one's for, you know, cooked meat, because obviously it's got a little bit of stuff on it from previously cooking with it. And so I'm just going to put the cover on and just let it go for a little bit here. I'm going to, you know, the temperatures are probably going to rise up a little bit, and I'll have to, I don't know what everybody else does, but it doesn't matter. I have to, you know, come out after a while and, you know, check the temperature and make sure, you know, to adjust the vents, so they can, like I say, I can keep it at about, like I say, I think this gauge would actually say about 250 degrees. But like I say, you know, at the rack level, it might only be 225, 200 degrees. And when, you know, the meat's done, it essentially might be, you know, they call it the, you know, the, I can't remember the, you know, the red ring. But essentially, if you cook the meat at a lower temperature like this, it won't just be a ring. It'll just basically just, you know, be the, you know, encompass the entire meat. It'll look red, kind of like ham, because, you know, the, you know, allowed to, you know, to cook slow. So I'm just gonna let this sit, and I'll be back. Thanks. Okay, I bid the brisket in there in the ugly drum smoker, probably for maybe half an hour, 45 minutes, but you can see the temperature is only slightly rising above 250 degrees. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to transfer to using the temperature probes. Obviously this is the internal sensor for the inside of the drum. And this is the one that I'm actually going to put into the meat. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. I could get by without this, but obviously the one big benefit is actually, you know, I can put the sensor or the other part up in the window in the house and still, you know, be able to monitor the temperature outside without having to come out all the time to, you know, to check it. So I don't really need I don't think I need to show you how to put a probe in a drum, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put it inside of the top vent hole, and then put it into the meat, and then the other one's just going to go down inside there. At some point they need to drill a hole in the side of the drum to put a grommet or a cork or something like that in there, so I can actually just put the cable in through that. But it all works. So essentially I'm just going to put the probes in through the top, and then just use them to be able to monitor the temperature without, like I say, coming out here all the time, because as things progress, the temperature might increase or will increase because of all the, you know, the charcoal that's in the basket. The more that more charcoal is actually burning, obviously the hotter it's going to get, and so I'll have to then, you know, cut back the airflow or the, you know, the venting to make sure the temperature doesn't get too high, because like I say, I don't want to get it much higher than the 250 degrees at or, you know, the temperature that it's at right now. So I'll be back. Okay, I was just going to show you real quick. One gauge shows about 250 degrees. This wasn't in the way. I stuck the single probe to sense the temperature within the drum, and you can see that slowly rising. It's about 210 degrees. I imagine before it levels off it might be at about 225 degrees. And here's obviously the remote sensor. They're going to show the same temperature. I guess I don't have any need to, you know, to send anything to monitor or go off, you know, when the meat is done, because obviously I'm just going to let it cook for several hours. But you can see it's 220 degrees right now. Like I say, I think it's just going to level off. It should level off at about 225, maybe a little bit higher, but that's pretty much just the temperature I want to have it at, is about no higher than 250 degrees. And 225 might be ideal. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to let it, you know, it's probably maybe going to rise, you know, could go up to a little bit higher to, you know, around 250 degrees, but I don't think it's going to, you know, go any higher than that. But I don't know if it's leveling out yet. So all I'm going to do is I just take the one with the probe, and I'm just going to, you know, hang it on the handle because I don't have anything fancy set up yet. So, and I'm just going to use my remote sensor in the house. Like I say, I'll set it up in the window so that basically you know, I can make sure that it's still Wi-Fi connected. And at this time, it looks like it's probably leveling out at about 230 degrees. which is fine. The gauge in the inside says it's a little bit more than 250 degrees, which theoretically could be true because, like I say, the heat rises and the probe is actually down there a little bit further in the drum, closer to the grate or possibly past the grate. And you know, so it's a little bit less hot. So it's gradually going up past 230 degrees, but I don't know. I'm just not going to worry about it too much. I just want to make sure that, I'm guessing I'm going to want to even make sure that it just stays below 250 degrees. So I'll just I'll go in the house, I'll put this sensor in the window and just, you know, keep an eye on it as I do other things. And, you know, when it is maybe rising a little bit more than I want it to, I'll just come out and adjust the vents at that time. Okay, I have some red skin potatoes that I need to use up. To be honest, they were kind of going a little bit bad. So what I decided to do was, this is actually a very small, I think it's only maybe 8x4 small aluminum pan. I diced up and then cut off the bad parts of the potato, and then just put them in a bowl with melted butter and a little bit of seasoning and tossed them a little bit before putting them in the pan. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, because the temperature is actually rising a little bit warmer than I want it to be, now is the time to actually adjust down the heat a little bit, because it's getting warmer and it's a little bit more smoke. So all I'm going to do is throw some potatoes in. Oops. Put the cover back on. Pull the gauge up a little bit. And then I guess I'm going to leave the top vent open. But then I'm going to start adjusting lower vents so that maybe it's, you know, keeps it a little bit cooler. So after I took the cover off, it's slowly rising back up again, but I just adjusted basically both vents to halfway open. I suppose I could also just do this, you know, and it doesn't really matter, I guess. You know, the whole purpose, obviously, to, you know, to limit the air getting in there so that control the coal's burning temperature. And so see, there's a little bit more smoke coming out of it. It's still rising up to close to 250 degrees. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put both of those at about a third of the way open, and just kind of watch it from there. It says it's 252 right now, still rising. So I'll just cut it back and leave it go. Well, obviously, you know, with the lack of air, can, you know, produce more smoke from the charcoal, but I don't want it to get too terribly hot. Yes, now it's almost 260 degrees. But it's probably partially because I opened it up, getting all that extra air, and so at some point it'll probably just cut back, because the oxygen in the barrel will actually be depleted, so that the coals don't have so much air and they can't get so hot. So I'll be back. Okay, it's 12:30, so I think I've had the brisket in for about 2 to 2.5 hours. The temperature is actually rising a little bit, and now showing about 243 degrees. And so, like I say, I wanted to try to keep the range down lower at about 225. So what I did is I just cut down the air, or cut one side completely off, so it's only one valve is open, and close the top valves to try to get the temperature to come down a little bit. In the meantime, I have something else I need to do, and that is pick raspberries. Okay, I've been cooking this. I think it's about a little after 5 o'clock here in the afternoon, so I think I've been cooking this for about a little bit more than 6 hours. It says the temperature of the brisket is 197, and it seems like the temperature is actually just going down. I'm not going to trust the probe to be completely reliable, so what I'm going to do is actually just remove the lid that's on here, and then just put the flat lid on it and just let it sit. In the meantime, I also grabbed some corn, sweet corn, and I'm going to just try to put that in there and see if it actually can get done in the time that I actually let the brisket sit in there, and maybe until the temperatures get about 150. But if not, I can just put it in the microwave for 3 minutes per ear, so about 6 minutes for both of them, and they would be completely done. So I'm going to pull the temperature probes and put them out of the way. And I'm going to put on a glove, because obviously you know that. Okay, I'm going to have to go ahead and try to cut a piece of this off. As you can see, it was cooked for like I don't know, maybe 7 hours. And that's really good. It's kind of hard to even cut up without it falling apart. Is the brisket. So I'm just waiting for my corn to get done, which is another minute and a half. But all I'm going to do is peel it. Okay, a final shot. I got a few more slices of brisket to put on the plate, but then I'm going, when it's cooked sufficiently, it all just sticks together because of the sugar content. It's the first thing to cool off. So basically I just have the corn like that. That's how I'm going to serve it. So I'm just going to put a little bit of salt and butter on it, and everything's ready to go. I guess I can't wait much longer because I'm hungry and the food is getting cold. Okay, I was going to do a final critique. This obviously the brisket was done enough. I left a slight fat cap on it, so I didn't trim all the fat off. You can see the a little bit of the fat, and it looks like there's a little bit of fat within the meat. I didn't slice it against the grain. I sliced it with the grain, but I was still using a butter knife or the side of a fork to cut it up, so I guess I could say that it might possibly have been just a little bit too cooked, but that's all I could eat today. The potatoes did cook, but unfortunately, at 225 degrees, even up to 240, which I guess my average is probably in the 225 to 230 range. But red skin potatoes of this size might be slightly too big for to cook at that temperature, because I think they need a higher temperature. So after trying one, I actually realized I had to put them in the microwave for a few more minutes to get them done. But they are done now. This is what I have left over. I may not eat the corn, but I got the potatoes and leftover brisket for tomorrow. Because the brisket is so done, I'll just heat it up in the microwave, along with some potatoes and whatever else I want for a vegetable. Because I think, once my stomach settles, I'll probably just eat the rest of the corn. So that's kind of about it. My little teeny piece of brisket without a lot of, or no bark. A little bit of a fat back, but cooked to the point where I can cut it up with the edge of a fork. And so nothing wrong with that. And like I say, maybe it was overcooked, but better overcooked than undercooked. Thanks for watching.